Greetings everyone. My name is Vrinda Sapra and I am a final year student pursuing economics honors from Shivaji College, University of Delhi. In this video, we are going to discuss the Mundell-Fleming model, particularly under the expansionary monetary policy under different exchange rate systems, that is the fixed exchange rate system and the flexible exchange rate system. Before we begin, let us understand what is Mundell-Fleming model. So Mundell-Fleming model basically extends the ISLM model to an open economy under the perfect capital mobility. So open economy, as we all know, is the one where there is trade between the domestic country and the rest of the world. And perfect capital mobility refers to a situation where one can move its capital from one country to another in search of better return on investment. For example, if I want to invest my capital, so I have the choice to invest my capital whether in the domestic country or in the foreign country wherever there is better return on investment. So now let us take a look what happens when there is an expansionary monetary policy under the different exchange rate systems. First, we will begin with the fixed exchange rate system. A fixed exchange rate system is the one where the exchange rate is set, maintained, and regulated by the government of that country. In a fixed exchange rate system, the central bank of that country plays a major role in determining the exchange rate, as the central bank has the authority to sell or buy foreign exchange for domestic money to maintain the fixed exchange rate in a particular country. Now, let us have a look at the diagram. The blue lines show the basic ISLM model. The intersection of the IS and LM curve shows the equilibrium point, which shows that there is an internal as well as external balance. By internal and external balance, we mean that the domestic interest rate is equal to the foreign interest rate. Also, the employment exists at the full employment level. Now, we will discuss what happens when there is an expansionary monetary policy under a fixed exchange rate system, given the situation that it is an open economy with perfect capital mobility. So, when there will be an expansionary monetary policy, the money supply in the country will increase. As a result, the LM curve will shift towards the right. Now we will be at the orange LM curve and the initial IS curve only. And this point shows the new equilibrium. So here at this point we see that the domestic interest rate is now lower than the foreign interest rate. As a result, we know that since there is a perfect capital mobility, so people would prefer to invest their capital in the foreign countries in hope of better return on investment. So there will be a capital outflow in our country. As a result, our domestic currency will tend to depreciate. By depreciation, we mean that the domestic currency will loses its value in terms of the foreign currency. However, we know that this is a fixed exchange rate system where the central bank plays a major role in setting and maintaining the exchange rate. So, the central bank will come into the picture. For example, in case of India, RBI will sell foreign exchange for domestic money. Now, as the RBI sells the foreign exchange for domestic money, the supply of domestic money will fall. The supply of domestic money will fall because the money supply constitutes the money held by the people and not by the central bank. Since the domestic money supply falls, we will see that LM will shift towards the left. As a result, we will be back at the initial LM curve and we will be back at the initial equilibrium too. So we see that under the fixed exchange rate, when there will be an expansionary monetary policy, for some time LM curve will shift towards the right. However, with the effects, it will return back to its initial position and we will be back at the old equilibrium only. So we see that under the fixed exchange rate, when there is a expansionary monetary policy, it is not very effective because there is no change in the output. There is only a loss of reserves because RBI had to sell foreign exchange for domestic money to meet the capital outflow requirements. Now, we will have a look what happens when there is an expansionary monetary policy under the flexible exchange rate system given the conditions of open economy with perfect capital mobility. So flexible exchange rate system is the one where the exchange rate is not set by the government but by the market forces of demand and supply. Here we will discuss what happens when there is an expansionary monetary policy. In the diagram we can see that again the blue lines show the basic ISLM model where the intersection of the IS and LM curve shows the equilibrium where there is an internal as well as external balance. So now we are going to discuss what happens when there is a monetary expansion, that is the money supply increases. So as the money supply increases, we will see that LM curve will shift towards the right. That is, from the blue LM curve, we will now come to the orange LM curve as the IS curve remains the same. So now we will be at this point. At this point, we see that the domestic interest rate is lower than the foreign interest rate. And since we know that it is a case of perfect capital mobility, so we see that if the foreign interest rate will be higher than the domestic interest rate, so people will tend to invest their capital in foreign countries in hope of better return on investment. As a result, there will be a capital outflow. Because of the capital outflow, the domestic currency will tend to depreciate. And since in case of flexible exchange rate, there is no role of the government or the central bank, we will see that as the domestic currency depreciates, the domestic currency becomes more competitive. By more competitive, we mean that to the foreigners, it seems cheaper to buy goods or services from our country. As a result, they will increase their buyings from our country. As a result, our net exports will increase. And since we know that net exports is a component of aggregate demand, so our aggregate demand will increase, which will cause the IS curve to shift towards the right. So now we will see that the IS curve will shift from the blue line to the orange line. As a result, we will reach to this point. At this point, we will see that the interest rate is same as it was before. That is, there is no change in the interest rate. However, we have achieved a higher level of output, and also we will see that there is an improvement in the trade balance because we see that the domestic currency has become more competitive and there is an increase in the net exports. So, under the flexible exchange rate, monetary policy turns out to be very effective because we have achieved a higher level of output and also our trade balance has improved. So, under the Mundell Fleming model, we have discussed the impact of expansionary monetary policy under the fixed and flexible exchange rate systems, where we saw that the expansionary monetary policy was effective under the flexible exchange rate system. However, it was ineffective in the fixed exchange rate system because we returned back to the initial equilibrium and there was no change in the output or the interest rate. And also there was a loss of reserves too. So in a similar way, we can discuss the effects of expansionary fiscal policy under the Mundell-Fleming model. So that was it for this video. I hope you had a wonderful time. Thanks for watching.